Hi, Lana.
Hi, Brianna.
Hi. Really feeling grateful to be here, dropping in with you, dropping in with all of the women who are interested in joining us for Women Walking the Path.
Likewise.
And the purpose of today's video and us dropping in together is to share some background about Women Walking the Path, what it's meant to us, some of what the journey perhaps looked like last year, and as we're moving forward in with this new group that's joining us this year. Some of the common questions and concerns so that people feel like they really have their like they can wrap their head around like who are we as
Yeah,
the beings that are holding this space, and then how does it make a difference in the lives of the women who choose to come and journey with us.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
So, how did this come to be? And what is the intention? That is a really great question. So, for those of you who don't know me, I had a really, I would say, life-changing experience. I know that word gets thrown around a lot nowadays, but a few years ago, I went to a training that Brianna was one of the facilitators on. That after all the work that I had done as a facilitator and as a medicine woman, participant as well as facilitator, in that one experience, I managed to clear some trauma that I hadn't been able to access for many, many years. My whole life, actually, since I was 15. So after that, I thought, holy shit, if this could happen in 5 days, there are so many women that I know that would benefit. And yet I was really interested in an all women's container. We happened to be in a co-ed container. So I approached you, Missy, and we started having conversations and realized that, in fact, yes, this was something needed for all women. And the intention was really to create a safe, loving container where women can fully express and that they're able to access. Certainly, that was my intention. But I'm passing the ball to you.
How it came to be for me, if I were to just reach out into the cosmos and paint a little picture, is that I felt a spark of aliveness in you, Alana, that was inspiring to me.
Mm.
That you said, I want to stand for the vision that women from my community and women that I had worked with in the past, and like all of these amazing women could do work with other women and could do the same depth of work that perhaps I'd been leading in a lot of co-ed spaces, which I also really deeply love, but it's different. It's different medicine. It's different medicine when a group of women can come together to talk about the challenges and the celebrations that are unique to the ways that we relate and connect with each other. I grew up, I feel so grateful for this, but I grew up in with this being modeled in my communities. I grew up with a mom who's a spiritual leader and practitioner who's been on her own spiritual path and continues to this day at 78 to meet with her women's group every Friday and dive into deep topics. And so I feel like she really laid a solid foundation for me to see where there was aliveness. But I also mentioned that I hadn't been doing this for years. And some of that was because I didn't want to exclude anyone. And particularly after having some really beautiful connections and relationships with individuals who don't identify in the binary, I paused. I paused to give it some thought. I was still occasionally running evening long sessions with women in my community here in Austin, but I realized upon your excitement that it was time to bring this out in a bigger way. And what I experienced last year, so that would have been in 2025 during our Women Walking the Path retreat in the fall, is that there was something that was so unexpected. And even just the journey that Alana and I have been through around this, I mean, I would say that we're high performing women with a very high level, very high standard of excellence who operate in a lot of our masculine to bring the visions forward. So I saw these similarities and I felt the trust and I felt the humility between both of us and the ways that we wanted to learn from each other, alongside each other, standing shoulder to shoulder and doing some of the healing work that didn't have to do with each other necessarily. But these deep wounds that can happen in any body around trusting that integrated space of masculine and feminine energy within all of us.
Oh my God, I love that so much because for all the women out there that are watching this that feel high level, exactly everything you described, showing up in a high level, being these beautiful women beings, and yet having to operate in our masculine in order to, create the life that we want, because a lot of us have to do everything ourselves. We may not be in partnership. We may not be in certain things that allow us. And so when, whether it's at work or whether it's at home ourselves, it's like, oh yeah, I can do it. And then that becomes autopilot. So where do we get help? Where do we go where we actually just purely as women are able to be helped?
And I think that's the number one thing that I hear from a lot of women who are coming in. Maybe it's not the thing that's right at the surface, but underneath the layers, I hear a lot of deep grief for either losing the ability to be held, trusting that people will show up for us and not drop us, trusting that our vulnerability is actually welcomed, particularly if it's been weaponized against us at other times in our lives. And again, that's not unique just towards women, but it is unique into the idea that we're in a collective. Um, and I'm going to use this word lightly, but my understanding of leadership matriarchal leadership is that we're coming from an emotionally regulated place. And that doesn't mean tampering down emotions. So there's space for both uh, expression and acknowledgement of rage and grief. That's some of the most intense ways that we move. I'd say emotions that are more on the dense side, and then the ways that we can come together to surrender leadership from it just being looking outside of self for the answers. Like that's some of the emotional regulation, matriarchal lineage that I am starting to just really recognize. That's what makes my body expand versus contract. That's where I find new layers of trust when I'm in community. And I'd really say that the women who are drawn to this, I mean, the reason it's called Women Walking the Path is that these are women who are high performers in some, if not multiple areas of their lives. As a parent, as a sibling, as a member of the family, perhaps in their business and professional lives. And this is a space, Women Walking the Path retreat is a space for us to remember what it's like to fully receive in the most subtle layers, in the most subtle ways. So like we talk about sensuality, that's in some of the description of this. And so sometimes people are wondering like, where does sensuality play into this? Um, Also, and I'm going to tie this in with something that I think a lot of people are looking to reclaim, a lot of women are looking to reclaim, which is how do I connect to my pleasure? I just want to feel more pleasure. I lost my connection to pleasure. These are lines that I hear a lot. And I can relate to those. And I know that you can too, Alana, from your background and your story. There's so many pieces here that I can relate to. And I noticed that I was able to connect more deeply to my authentic pleasure, not my performative pleasure, my authentic pleasure, when I was giving myself permission to feel more of everything. I don't really get to select, pick, and choose which I feel more of. I have to feel more. So, in order to feel more pleasure, I have to feel more and insert any word after that. More of my rage, more of my grief, more of my sadness, owning it, looking at it, being with it, loving it, dancing with it. So you can tell I'm excited. I just keep going on and on here, but I'd love to have you speak into some of those pieces. This is off the cuff, right? Those that are watching this, like
This
it's
is
intentionally unscripted because this is how we do. This is
Mhm.
how we move the space forward. And we listen deeply. We talk about what are we seeing right here that's alive in the space. Okay, you go.
I, I love it so much. I'm like, wait, can I come?
You can come.
I can go. Okay, good. Um, so God, I almost started crying, and then you started just talking about like trusting that we can be supported because so many of us, like, do we have that trust? And can we allow that trust in a properly held container for a certain duration of time, right? Not like a 3-minute moment, not that hug with the person, not a dinner with the friend. Like, what happens when we actually give ourselves space to feel all of these things that we, even at the best of us, push down because we don't have the space, because we're off, we're moving, we're doing, and so what happens when there's a duration of that time? And as you said, it's like, where's that quote where, the amount of pleasure is exactly equivalent to the amount of pain that you can feel. Like the side is, it's the same. So you want to feel more pleasure? Well, you're going to have to feel the other side too, because one side sensitizes the other. So I love that you said that.
And then how can we do that in a place where we're bringing consciousness to it so that we're not going into a catharsis state that can sometimes lock us down even more. So we're really looking at this moment to moment during the time that we're together. What is the tool that's being called for right now, right here, right now, based on how the group, how we are also reading and in with the group. It's one of the pieces that I don't think I can do any differently at this point in retreat leading. And I've been facilitating for over 20 years. And there are some formulas that are tried and true. And I know that they can go in a certain order, but there's still the bridging and listening to the field. And many of the women who are attending are also leaders in facilitation. And so there's an expansion piece that I think people can feel around like, oh, I am as much a creation part of this as possible. Now, don't worry, we do come with a very set curriculum. We're just also willing to shift based on the energy that's coming through, which is for me, that's been part of my journey into the feminine is to know that there's a solid structure and a container that I can move within and that the walls are strong. Um, so some of the ways that we do this, and I want to speak a bit more into like, so what actually happens during this time. A big piece of this is embodiment practice. So I say I want to be a certain way, but how am I actually moving through the world? So there's physical movement. There's some guided dance. So if anybody's been to ecstatic dance or five rhythms, we're offering some, we might set the context before we go into movement. And then there's music for maybe 30 minutes. We're moving through the space with some guidance and then periods of reflection as well. And one of my mentors really beautifully laid out these three concentric circles. One is the experience piece, the other is integration, and then the third is reflection. And in that little middle triangle shape, I feel transformation. Like that's where transformation happens when there's a balance point of experience, reflection, and integration that's available. So we're building in those pieces over the course of the long weekend that we're together.
Yeah, I mean, I say this when I speak to people that I know, like, you are leading retreats of 40, 60 people like every week, every other week, certainly so often. And so you start to see the patterning, as you said, of what actually allows people to shift and change. And so bringing that forward, how are you seeing that's different in spaces for women than for men? And co-ed, rather.
Yeah. Say that last part again.
How do you see that there's any difference in treating spaces that are just women? Because you do a lot of co-ed. And so you do so much, and when I say to people, oh my God, Brianna, like when we were looking at the calendar, it was like, oh, I could do something in 2028. I was like, no, no, let's find a date now. Just curious, is there, and maybe there isn't, is there a way that spaces with all women, that there's an energetic piece that is different than the co-ed spaces?
I feel like I'm giving away the end of the movie if I answer this.
Oh, you're right. All right, save it. Don't give it away.
I'm gonna work around it. I'm gonna work around it without giving away. I mean, one of the things that I believe that we all walked away with last year and that women in my groups often walk away with is actually feeling that difference, feeling the difference of what's available when we're with a group of women. So I don't want to speak to what I see as the differences. I'm more interested in what each of us who are attending feel as the differences that are occurring there. But what I will say is that each container that I hold based on the intention of like the overall meta intention of what are we doing here this weekend, the what I'm bringing to each space shifts just slightly based on that. But it's fully connected to the authenticity of a moment. And And I want to speak to another element that we mentioned this word in passing, but I want to get a bit of context to it. And that's around the like shamanic states. I'm really deeply appreciating where the world is right now in relation to how I experience shamanic states. And I'd say the most simple version is creating spaces of ordinary and non-ordinary reality. And where I can walk with one foot in each world. Can I trust life enough that I can put on a blindfold and be guided by someone that I've just met? That I can um, use my breath or my dance to go into a space of like a flow state or a trance state. But that takes a lot of trust, not just trust in myself, but trust in the space, trust in the mystery, trust in the unknown, trust that if something comes up for me, I can meet it. And then I can also ask for support. Another edge that a lot of us face, asking for support. But what comes out on the other side of that trust in the mystery, that asking for support, that asking for guidance, asking the question that's right there. You know, I feel this place like between my heart and my guts. This is like my truth space. It's a little tender when I push on it. And this truth space, I think of it as the gate between my power and my love. And that's where a lot of that intuition place comes from. So it's also a building up of intuition, not just for those of us that are going to be leading, but for the people who are attending to go out to be able to vibrate a more authentic version of self in whatever it is that they're doing as a parent, as a um, as a leader in their community, as a spiritual being, just me with me.
Yes, shamanic states that we're, I love your explanation of it so much because it is the straddle and understanding what that is. Um, and so, another thing that comes up is like, why now? Like,
Mhm.
why this time now?
Mhm.
And there's, I mean, there are so many reasons why people think why now, why not now, right? So I can give you the list, the full gamut. But really, people that want to feel, and in general, this is me too. Like when I make a decision that I want to do something, I want to time travel. I want to be that version of me. I want to know. I'm already feeling it's possible. That version is calling me in, and I want to step into it. So all the things between that and this, the doubt, the time, and they're all real, right? Time, money, partners, like there's a plethora of probably 30 things that are the doubts. But the reality is that when we feel and we're like, oh, I feel like I want that, it's also because that highest self version of us is wanting us to step into it. So the now allows for that shapeshift, for that desired outcome, right? And everything in between dissolves the moment you're like, oh, yeah, now.
Now is the time. I've been spinning with a question. I've been stuck in an energy. Um, Recently, I've been exploring with some of my mentees and students and clients the way that this is going to sound maybe a little woo-woo for some people that are listening in, but I'm just going to say the thing. Um, the way that our energetic field can get like globbed up with stuff. And I think what I'm appreciating about this particular time is that many, many, many people are finding resources to work with plant medicine to find a way through like clearing some of that energy. And we're taking, I'd say, like 4, 5, 6, 7 different modalities of being able to clear our energetic field in such a way that we can start to call in more of this future self that you mentioned. Like I want to see that now. I want to feel it now and not to get it perfect. And this is something that's been part of my journey too, like the wanting to get it right, almost doing shadow work, like ad nauseum. Like there's just no end to the shadow work that's coming through. And I've done the purge and I've done the, and this is where it's like, I want to be so gentle. And that's some of what we practice too, is being really gentle with ourselves and with each other, but without stripping away any of the power. So that's some of the like, is it and is now the time? Like I've tried, I've been doing, I have skills, I have practices, and yet something in my energy field is continuing to call in certain situations. I'm finding myself showing up this same uncomfortable way in multiple areas of my life, even though on paper I'm succeeding in so many ways. Like, yeah, so I don't want it to make it so much about like there's nothing wrong with you. And I think that's one of the pieces I want to say is like, there's nothing wrong with you, whoever you are. It doesn't need to feel like the most painful time in life. It's just the time where there's enough spaciousness to say, I'm ready to step into what's next.
Although, one of the things that really separated what this modality was for me, separate to what plant medicine, even with the best intentions with plant medicine, right? You go in, you're like, you have your intentions, you've done everything, and the medicine will show you what it needs to show you. That's the nature of it. That's the beauty of it. That's how it works. What I really love about this kind of modality is that, through the variety of workshops that we'll be covering over the 3 or plus days, it's very targeted.
Mm,
You go in and you're like, okay, now we're dealing with women body issues, just your body. Doesn't have to be issues, body thoughts, right? Not specific to issues. What do you think? And very targeted around one thing. Now we're
mm,
dealing with, let's say, rage or grief or joy or whatever it is, whatever the emotion is. And it's very targeted to that. So it's not this like, oh, it'll go wherever it wants to. Yeah, there's an element of the mystery in that because we don't know, but it's also like an arrow.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's some of that balance point between holding the structure so that what wants to move within that structure can be there. Yeah, so that's also what I was outlining. Like we have, I'd say in the ways that Alana and I have worked together and found our workflow, we're paying attention to the moment, but we're also looking at all of the possibilities that can be there. And so we might say, like our outline last time was like day one, here's the ways. And it's like a choose your own adventure book in some ways. Okay, if A, then B. Okay, but we didn't do B, but we want to do D. Okay, so let's go back and put C here. And that's some of what I feel is like that's honoring the aliveness of a moment. It's honoring that there can be spaciousness. This is what's made such a difference in the lives of so many women that are in leadership that I'm connected to be able to look at that and take it into all of the areas of life, to be more with the surrender to the moment, to honor like, what is my truth in this moment, my actual truth? What's the part that's in me that I feel like I've actually now like masked so many masks over? I don't even know who I am underneath that in these types of situations. And that's normal. That's coping mechanism.
And to the women that are craving to be around other women in our authentic expression, not in the things we have to be or the society told us, but what does it actually feel like just to be different archetypes of women that we get to step into over the course of this timeline?
Definitely. And to try those on in a space where there's both play and purpose. So when we're talking about archetypes, I mean, I have kind of some standard ones that I play with, but I'm coming up with new archetypes all the time, particularly as it relates to some of my parts, my inner parts work, some of my pattern acknowledgement. I just worked with one over the weekend that she'd been hiding out back there, and you'll hear more about her, I'm sure, this summer. But it was like I describe her as like the oldest kid at Thanksgiving who has to still sit at the kids' table. She's like 12, and the next closest in age to her is 8. And she's just like, ugh.
She comes out to play too. Um, yeah, so one of the things I actually just want to mention, and I probably share it if I'm the person, connecting to whoever the call is with, but I want to talk about the space for a moment and the
Mm.
space that we're in. And so,
Please, please.
but
This is such a gift. I just want to say up front, this is such a gift that this is the space that we get to do this work in. I am so touched and honored. This is not something that's normal or for this venue. It's not a venue in this way. And I feel really grateful to have been invited in to do this work there.
same. So, just as had decided we had our dates, we were going to do this, I ended up going to an ayahuasca retreat in New York. And I walked into this place, and from the moment I walked in, I was like, this place is so incredible in its actual structure, but it was more of everywhere I looked, there was intentionality. Every little picture, every little glass, every little cup. Now, you could say it was curated well, and that's true, but also there was an underfeeling of what this place that really is a temple and that really is a holder of many, many beings. And after this retreat, we spoke to the owners of this place, and they allowed us to have our retreat there. Now, the beauty was that they had never actually had another retreat there. We were the first, and now, we've been allowed back. But it really is a magical setting. It's on beautiful land. It's vast. It's big. It's beautiful. I don't know what else to say outside of that. The thing is, we're not allowed to share too many pictures because of the nature and the sensitivity of this actual location. So you won't see very much information. You'll see a little bit. Some of it is based on trust, but I would have to say it's probably one of the most spiritually attuned locations I've had the honor of being, and to this day.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again for the relationship building that you did.
Oh, yeah, it was natural. It was just the flow of what happened. So, so what are some common concerns that you get asked? Like when people, you do this kind of work very regularly, like what is the kind of concerns that people come in with?
Mhm. Taking time, I mean, I think one of the biggest ones is resources and resource management. So taking time away from family, taking time away from home, um, the investment, like investing in oneself in this way. And I think the concern under that is like, is it going to make a difference for me?
Mhm,
Is it going to make a difference for me in my life?
mhm,
There's something different than when I'm investing in my business with my bookkeeper, my accountant, my social media manager. It's like there are more tangible, quote unquote, results in some way. But doing something that seems from the surface like any part of me that's in doubt could talk me out of there being tangible results. And that's fair. We can't actually promise some, ROI in some tangible way. And I'm laughing at that a little bit because what I'm hearing from the women that were with us in October, this next one that's coming up is going to be a bit earlier in the year. But from the women that were with us last year, I'm getting messages over and over and over again about how something that they chose to be integrating was still working in their relationships with their family, with their partners, really deeply working them because they chose to put this time aside to be with it, to be with and to do some pre-work. So we start off a few days before, sometime in that week or so before, we meet together as a full cohort for the first time to sit, to breathe together, to begin to like really feel like, okay, this is who's going to be here. This is who I am in this space. And then we wrap up sometime after we're together in person with a closing. So in some ways, you're also getting that container holding for a number of weeks over that period of time. You started to say this as well, Alana, but um, it really does begin the moment that someone says yes. So women walked into the space saying like, oh yeah, it started 3 months ago when I put my deposit down.
mhm,
Something started to shift in that area that had felt mm, constricted or uncomfortable. Um, what other concerns do people come in with? Some of it is around the like, do I have to? Do I
Mhm.
have to be? Do I have to work with my rage? Do I have to work with my grief? Um, do I have to have consensual touch with other people? What does that mean, sensuality? So I spoke to some of these pieces before, but the short answer for that one is everything is at choice. Everything. And we outline this in a bit of the container setting. Um, that every single piece, and sometimes I'll even ask along the way, I'll explain the whole thing that we're about to do. And then I'll say, is anybody really feeling that their full truth is to just stay seated, come back to themselves? We invite people to stay in the space, even if they're not participating in one of the particular movements. We had somebody that got a migraine during it, and she sat with an eye mask on and just felt the energy of the space. And she said it was incredibly healing for her because one, she advocated for herself, and two, she made the choice to stay. And then she said she got more out of it because of that, more than if she'd been up moving her body when her body was a no. And historically, she hadn't listened to her body being a no. So there's some really alive pieces here that I think are beautiful about some of the places that can be concerns for us. Also, just to note, because Alana has a background in plant medicine, I also do some medicine work with clients. We're in a space that hosts really amazing, very conscious use plant medicine journeys. Some people think like, okay, there's a lot of pieces here around plant medicine. Do I have to have ever used, or will we be working with anything? And we're not. Any of the altered states that we experience is only from the energy, and letting ourselves begin to tune in, resensitize, and notice the subtle shifts in energy to journey. So we're journeying because of meditation and movement and sound, and going deep into looking at working with some of our more tender pieces that are historically more hidden from this self.
And, as somebody who's a practitioner of this, I'll tell you guys, those altered states are as powerful as plant medicine states. There is a place of vibration that we go into doing it in community, doing it in this intentional way. I mean, I accessed places I was never able to access on plant medicine. It was just as powerful. I would not deem it any less powerful. That's why it was so transformative for me, and just talking about like, um, for me, just to kind of share, I've shared some of this. I cleared trauma I wasn't able to clear. My boundaries completely changed. And what was really interesting, because so much energy moved for me, I actually got into alignment and I was clear on my purpose, but because my energy aligned, I had energy to do so much. So that was my personal experience. Talk about ROI. Holy shit. Like if somebody said to me, this is what it costs. It's like $100,000 and you're going to get all those things. Are you willing to invest? I'd be like, I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it because that's, what I got. So that was my personal experience with this type of work, which is hence, hence why you felt the pull and why you felt my excitement.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really amazing to watch what's unfolded for you. The way that I'm sure that some of these parts have always been parts of you, but the way that you laugh these days is really different, sparkly, alive energy than when I met. And I know when I met you, you were also in a crunchier moment and there was a bit more protection. Our relationship has shifted, but I'm seeing you just do this out in the world. The way that you're connecting with sharing your journey, the ways that you've like any place in you that was like really committed to playing small. I just feel you being now like, no,
Doesn't matter.
why would I?
Exactly. No, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that reflection, because everybody here that's watching this knows for themselves what it takes to feel into those things. And still, you and I, the beauty of actually, I know this sounds like a tooting horns, but the beauty of sitting with you is like you're a real person. And like the realness allows me to be real. And when you're going through things, it's not guarded. It's not like I'm the facilitator, I am not a human. It is, I'm a facilitator and I am a human. And these are my things that I'm feeling. And maybe because I'm feeling it, I can share it and somebody else can feel it too, in whichever side of the spectrum that is. So let's just talk about something that is about, so you've had this transformative experience and now you're dropped back into your life where everything is the same as it was
Right.
before.
Right. I remember hearing from people, they're like, and then I saw my dog and my kids are relating to me differently. And, yeah, like some of the stories that come alive. Right. So this afterward place, this is something that Alana and I deeply care about. We both do integration work with people after big experiences, whether we were at those big experiences or not. And the way that we can care for each other in community, I think is so important. So we have a WhatsApp thread of participants that carries over, and we're this last one was in October, we're now in March, so we're still seeing people pop in just to share a bit about their journey, to share what's up, to share, some things that they're noticing. So that stays as alive as the group wants it to be. There's no pressure. We aren't guiding pieces on it, but we want to keep that thread of connection there for this exact purpose.
I love that. And you also have a group that meets every week. You're so committed to it. I love it. You always have teachers because, some people, they might get a taste of what this is and want to continue this deeper exploration. So I've worked with Brianna. I want to continue to work with Brianna, ongoing. And I would highly recommend that, sometimes there's been people after the last group that have continued their own thread of working with you through that.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, I see clients individually, one on one. You do as well. Like we both have a number of different offerings outside of doing retreats. I have a monthly membership group. And so, what's in working with a different small group to come in and learn from other teachers. I think this is one of the pieces of integration that can be really supportive is how to titrate after something that can be quite large and just take in small bits of information and then just do a lot of reflection, being in nature, being in the woods, being able to take it back home, maybe awakening practices like that we study here and during our time together. Maybe it's intentional breathing and breath work. Perhaps it's movement and dance, embodiment practice. And I think that's one of the deepest things, keeping some kind of a journal. Like I'll go almost a year dropping a journal practice and then something will happen. I'll pick it back up and then I'm like back in my everyday. So certainly so many of the tools that people already come in with for integration, but also knowing that you have us as a resource that's available.
Love it. Love it. So, yeah, if there's any other questions that, may come up that you have along the way, or maybe that this video inspired, please let me know. I'm always happy to answer them. And yeah, can't wait to see everybody. It's always such a special group, what alchemizes all the magic that happens. And actually, I can't wait to hang out with you again. I
Yes, I
haven't
know,
seen
I know,
you.
I know.
I'm seeing
This,
you. I'm like, wait, wait, wait.
I know the
I'm
six
looking
months have
forward.
been quite a stretch for us.
It has, and it's awesome hanging out. Thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, we'll be working and crafting, leading all the way up.
Yes. All right. See
Amazing.
you
All
all
right.
soon. Talk to you soon.
Okay.